we talked in the first part about your past betting shops and your experiences with various characters there. So they've written this book, Shouting the Odds, which we mentioned in part one, and the reason we're talking to you here today. So what made you decide to write it, firstly?
Well, when I was at uni, I was studying photography, and I distinctly remember on the second year, we were doing a lot of work to do with storytelling, but through images. So we were thinking a lot in storytelling and all this arty-farty stuff we were doing on the course. But I saw a lecture being advertised by Shane Meadows, a film who's gone on to much bigger, greater things. At the time, he was just setting out, and he was making films in Sneinton, strangely enough, and around Nottingham. I think he just finished Small Time, one of his first films. So I went to a talk actually about script writing rather than novel writing, but it was really inspirational. He had a very punk kind of DIY attitude towards the whole thing. So this was in '96. So that evening in a pub in Nottingham, I thought, bloody hell, that's it. This is what I want to do. I want to write a book set in a betting shop somewhere. And that's when the idea first came to me.
So did you write it? You moved to Sweden, so have you written it in Sweden?
Yeah, and this is the odd thing. Yeah, I mean, it got shoved at the back of my mind. My photography took off once I took off. By the time when I moved to Sweden in 2000, I was doing photographic work for Goodwood, and then that led to. So I went through a period from about 2000, only ended a few years ago, 2018, working for a lot of race courses. The idea for the book came back to me when I was convalescing I had an operation on my leg, and my wife said, "Why don't you?" So I was off for 6 weeks, couldn't do much. To look out those notes, you've always said you wanted to write this book, get going on it. So I started in 2014 in earnest. I joined a writers club, online, that was in the UK, and I wrote this first draft. Of course, I thought it was brilliant. Then I had a critique on it, and it had been written in the third person narrator. Like Andy went to the shop. Ron said this, Rita, and it wasn't good. So through various critiques and various drafts, I started writing in the first person. And I know you made some comments about that, Simon, when you read it. Writing the first person is superb because it takes away that wall between the story and the reader. And then writing as this book is in with three people telling the story makes it even more interesting because the reader becomes privy to information the other characters don't. So I think that helps with the pace and so on and so forth. So it took 6-7 years to get to the draft of the book that I was happy with. Yeah, sorry, that was rather.
It's quite unusual. I mean, I'm not most of the books I read are sort of autobiographies and that sort of thing. But to go,
yeah,
I found it quite unusual to go from one person to the other person. You almost felt a little bit like a body snatcher when you.
You had to keep aware of the name at the top of the chapter. But it didn't happen that often, did it? Which is probably just as confusing, in fact, Simon, isn't it? Because most of it is told through Andy's voice. There's only 2 chapters from his dad's voice, but then there's the girl. Yeah, I don't want to say too much.
Actually. No, don't spoil it. So, how much of Andy is you?
Oh, certainly the Andy that turns up in the betting shop in the book and puts some money on. Just picks a name out of the sky, like that. Certainly the early Andy, definitely. I did live in Nottingham 3 years. I lived in Sneinton. It was a great place. It was there was a lot of Irish, a lot of English, obviously, but a lot of Irish, Pakistanis, students, and they all seemed to like betting. I lived in Sneinton. I liked it a lot. I used to go and see Notts County play. I couldn't go and see Forest because that would have been too obvious. I liked an underdog. So Sam Allardyce was the trainer at County actually at the time. So I was like Andy in that way. Glenn, the manager, he's like a lot of the old school managers I worked with down the years, I think, and several of the punters probably know who they are.
Okay. Now you've written it. You've written it when you're in Sweden, so and that's quite far removed from the back streets of Nottingham. So how did you
Yeah,
get in the zone, so to speak? Did you need to get in the zone? Is that a thing, or is that just something?
you're right. Yeah, it's a good question. That once I'd set the scene, once I had written some stuff that was describing the betting shop, like the faulty air conditioner that used to be whirring away. That's absolutely out of real life. A shop in Wembley I used to work in, and getting into the smells, the kind of stale smell of energy drinks and Golden Virginia tobacco. Once I got that, and my imagination is quite strong, I was back in the zone.
Okay, so how, without giving too much away, people probably seen the book mentioned on various places now. You've been sticking it out there. Without giving too much away, can you give us a synopsis of what to expect?
First of all, yeah. First of all, son, I was going to read the back, but that's too long. That's the blurb. So bear with me. I'll explain a little without what it is. So there's a family in Nottingham. Book starts at Christmas. Happy family, mum and a dad and the son, Andy. He's the protagonist of the book. 3 months later, the father and the son have gone to see Notts County play at Wembley, which happened in real life, this Anglo-Italian obscure cup final. They come back to Nottingham and his mum has died suddenly. It's Ron's wife, Andy's mum. It changes the nature of their relationship completely. The next day, the dad kind of disowns Andy. He prefers to blame his son for persuading him to go down to the game, which wasn't really the case. Becomes a drunken recluse, disowns his son. A few months later, Andy finds himself, wandering home from work, wanders into a betting shop, puts some money on, because it's the best thing that ever happened, that has happened since his mum died. He wins some money. And he starts going to the bookies. He's left all his Notts County friends, everything behind him. He's disowned the club, his family. His mum's dead, his dad's disowned him. Very briefly, the final thing is he sees his dad on the first anniversary of his mum's death. They run into each other at the cemetery, shouting the odds at each other. They have a major fallout, and Andy thinks, that's it. I'm out of this. I've given myself a year to bet enough, try to win enough money to get out of Sneinton for good. That's it. Sod him, sod everything about this place. And that's where the story starts.
Okay, so
things don't go as planned, I should say. That's when the
truth.
You could say
it's a good story. Andy drinks a lot, doesn't he? He does. I did think, blimey, Andy, you're knocking those drinks back a bit, mate.
A few people have said that. Yeah, maybe in the maybe they do. Yeah. It wasn't deliberate, it wasn't conscious. There was a lot of drinking in the betting shops. Shouldn't have been, but I mean, people did get in with the drink. Perhaps. Do you think there's too much of that?
Well, I did worry a bit about his health, but anyway, you mentioned that some of the characters will recognise themselves. So what I was going to ask, characters are based on real people, but you've already said that they are. Have you had any comments from those people?
No, I say based. I wouldn't admit to any of it. I mean, no. I did want to originally in the copyright blurb. I did want to say, where you're asked to write any references to historical events, real people, or real places are intentional. Names, characters. You know who you are, you bastards. But I thought, no, I shouldn't do that. So no, they're not recognizable, Simon. A lot of them are various people molded into, the different types.
Yeah, it's purely coincidental. Oh, so
you're
in Sweden.
Yeah.
Do you still follow racing? Are you a punter?
Oh, I do. Yes. I had last bet I had was on the on the Irish Champions meeting at the weekend. Yes, I am. I mean, I was only ever really a recreational gambler, I guess. I've had a few good moments, you know, when odds and evens won the Stewards Cup. I won, you know, I mean, it's about £1.5 or something. I used to love doing play spots, big play spot perms. That was my thing. I used to love doing them. And I won 600, 700, 800 quid several times, you know, from leaving out the favourite, you know, in small fields. And I used to really like those, doing them. So I used to win a lot on those. And I had a couple of years where, like Andy, I used to keep a log of my bets. That's definitely me from the past. I just wanted to say, with that thing, with the whole idea of the book, very briefly before I forget, I was trying to write a book that that celebrated betting and racing as a pastime without glorifying it. I think that was important to me, and it's not an easy tightrope to walk. But I think I've done that because of the way the book pans out at the end. But again, I don't want to go into that too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, the betting, yeah. I was always a very cautious person by nature, Simon, and sometimes that counted against me with bets I put on. But I still bet today, yeah.
Good stuff. So finally, how far have you got on the sequel?
Now that's it. You see, I each time I think about a sequel, I just think I'll never. Without overrating what I've done, I don't be big-headed. I wonder. I'm tempted just to leave Shouting the Odds as it is, but that might change. I did think about writing a follow-up of the Him Now in Now time, you know, like in the present day. I thought that could be interesting. The original idea I had for a sequel was going to be like 2 or 3 years on, but I have some other ideas for books coming up. Maybe some short stories sticking with betting shops, and 1 or 2 perhaps racing ones, actually, with my racing photography and so on.
Okay, so John, thank you very much for taking your time to speak to us. Anyone that's not,
My pleasure.
Look, it's available on Amazon. Anywhere else?
No, just Amazon, exclusively with Amazon.
Okay, so
Kindle or paperback.
just easy to grab. Search Shouting the Odds on Amazon, and you'll enjoy the read, I'm pretty certain. So anyway, thanks very much for talking to us. Keep us informed if you do.
My pleasure.
If you get the other one out, next one out, and yeah, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Cheers. All the best.